Hey everybody, welcome to another episode in the Red Zone, a special edition of this. Wanted to give you my take on the conference championship games. The season is now over, and put out a video before the college football playoff selections because I want to give you my Red Zone playoff predictions and who I believe should be in the playoffs, and I'm going to tell you why. So a quick recap. Alabama stuns Georgia, knocks them out, wins the SEC championship. Michigan takes down Iowa, blanks them in the Big Ten championship game. Florida State hangs on against Louisville, and their defense looked pretty amazing. You had Washington beating Oregon for the second time. Texas takes care of Oklahoma State. And then, of course, you had Ohio State not playing in a game in the conference championship week. So where does that leave us, and who should be in the playoffs? Let's go ahead and start with my first team, the number one team in the playoffs, and that is the Michigan Wolverines. They took care of Iowa, dominated. Blake Corum becomes the all-time running back with touchdowns in Michigan history. Pretty significant feat. Michigan jumps to number one. They should be number one. They were at number two. They move up. At number two, Washington. They're undefeated. They're a conference champ. They beat Oregon twice. Penix Jr., in my opinion, is the best player in college football. I would give him the Heisman. That's debatable. We'll see how that shakes out, but we're not here to talk about the Heisman. We're here to talk about the college football playoffs. Washington, clearly the number two team sitting there. And then at number three, I have Alabama. It's the best win of the year. They come back, they beat Georgia, and to be honest with you, the Alabama at the beginning of the year that struggled with South Florida, that lost to Texas, this is a completely different Alabama team. It's not even close. And it reminds me of the 2014 Ohio State team that lost to Virginia Tech in week 2, had a new quarterback at the time in J.T. Barrett, who came in. He was a backup, came in to start for Braxton Miller, who was hurt. He takes the team. They lose. The offensive line was kind of new. They were still trying to figure each other out and gel. That team goes on, wins out, makes the playoffs, and at that point, J.T. Barrett gets hurt against Michigan. Cardale Jones, the third-string quarterback, comes in. They beat Wisconsin 59-0 in the Big Ten championship game. They go on. They beat Alabama in the semifinals. They beat Oregon for the national championship. Alabama right now is that team. They are not even close to being the same team as they were at the beginning of the year. I think Alabama is the third best team in the country right now. And as SEC one-loss conference champ, I have them at number 3. So the debate here is number 4. Who do you put in at number 4? And I've heard Kirk Herbstreit, I heard all these guys on ESPN, Brady Quinn and Fox Big Noon Kickoff, even Urban Meyer, who I love, but listen, they all argue Texas should get the 4th spot. I completely disagree. There is no way that you can keep out an undefeated Power 5 conference champion. Number 4 to me is Florida State. I'm not a Florida State fan. I never root for Florida State. It is damn near impossible to go undefeated in college football. We finished the season with 3 undefeated teams. To me, Florida State has to be in. They have to at least have that number 4 spot. If you're not going to put them in, then you're basically saying that playing games don't matter. Why even have a season? Just pick out the best 4 on paper and let them play a playoff. I mean, that's where we're at this point. So I just completely disagree. Texas has had a great season. Their one loss is to a 2-loss Oklahoma. Their best win is against Alabama. Okay, but it's not, and that's really all they have to point to for Texas, is that win against Alabama. The problem is that head-to-head, that's not the only thing that you go by. It has to be a full body of work for the entire season. And you take away the Alabama win, what does Texas have to point to? They don't have another good win on their resume. They struggle with Houston. They struggle with TCU, who lost to a 4-8 Colorado. I mean, I know they're playing really well at the end of the season, just like Alabama, but going undefeated has to mean something in college football. And if you're going to say that Florida State doesn't deserve to be in, then the committee is basically saying the ACC is not a Power 5 conference. That's what you're saying. So are they or are they not? Do you consider Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and do you consider them Power 5 schools or not? Because what Florida State did is damn near impossible. And I think that has to be rewarded. So I have Florida State in there at number 4. At number 5, these don't matter, but let's go ahead and hit them anyway. At number 5, I have Texas. They are the best one-loss team after those 4, and they're the Big 12 champs. They would be at number 5 in my opinion. At number 6, I would have Ohio State. I put Ohio State ahead of Georgia, who I have at number 7, and the reason is because if you look at Georgia's schedule, their best win was against Missouri. They don't really have another good one there. The SEC was a little bit down this year, whereas Alabama beat LSU and they beat Ole Miss. Georgia had a very soft schedule this year. And that hurts them when you have one loss like this. Ohio State beat Notre Dame. They beat Penn State. Okay, they went to the wire with Michigan. I just think that Ohio State, when you consider these are both one-loss teams who didn't win a conference championship, Ohio State edges out Georgia, and I would probably take Ohio State to win the game if these two teams were to play each other. And if it could somehow happen that these two teams could meet in the bowl game, that'd be great. Because although with all the opt-outs and everything, if you're not in the playoffs, I really don't think the bowl games matter at this point. So it doesn't really matter. But for me, and I think the conference committee will do this, Michigan, Washington, Alabama, and Florida State. You just can't keep Florida State out. I'm sorry, Texas fans, you just can't do it. So I hope the committee does the right thing in doing this. Otherwise, what's the point? I think if the committee were to say an undefeated Power 5 conference champ doesn't matter, I think there's enough of an uproar that the committee ultimately gets replaced with maybe we go back to a ranking system like the BCS where we use a computer formula. I'm all in favor of that. I don't like the selection committee. But the selection committee also knows that if there's an uproar, and we do away with the committee, they lose power. And one thing people do in situations like this is there's self-preservation. And there's people in that room, and there are people within these conferences who don't want to lose that power, the power of being able to decide. And so I don't think the committee keeps Florida State out. I don't think they can. I think it's in their own interest of self-preservation that you put an undefeated Power 5 conference champ in the playoffs. And if you do that, and you want to make the argument, well, what about Alabama and Texas? Again, Alabama has better wins. I know there's the head-to-head, but it's not the only thing you look at. You have to look the full body of work. And Alabama's wins over LSU, who has what most people think is the Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels, and a win over Ole Miss, I mean, that just trumps any other wins that Texas has. So, if you want to flip Alabama and Florida State in the rankings from what I have, fine. But ultimately, at the end of the day, these are my top 4. These are the 4 I believe should be in the playoffs, and I hope the committee does the right thing. You guys can put it in your comments. I know most of you are going to disagree with me, especially Texas fans, and that's fine. Go ahead and put your comments down there. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, if you haven't subscribed, like the video, leave a comment, hit the notification bell. And Sean and I will be back in a week or so, and we'll start picking bowl games, and we will pick, later on, we'll pick the semifinal games, and you'll see what we think of that. So, guys, it's been a great football season. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Take care.